Geospatial data, we think, plays an important part in helping us understand that, but our investments and our grants, each one is structured with a learning framework where we will say what our hypothesis is, and then as we go through the investment or the grant, we ask those investees to report on those metrics that we've set up to see if that hypothesis is holding true or if it's changing. The other thing that we do is we have an impact investing framework, and this is how we think about what our returns are, whether it's a pure financial commercial return on the one end, or whether it's not what we call 100% loss capital, which would be a grant to an organization that has no income generation but actually exists on grants. And looking at that ecosystem and that sort of framework, we'll decide whether or not we can reduce the financial return expectation because there is at the same time an increasing social impact. Open data is very important, we think, as part of what we do. We have a particular initiative called the Governance and Citizen Engagement, which has been at the forefront of providing funding for a lot of open data initiatives. So we support the Open Data Institute, the Open Government Partnership, and many others. And actually we see geospatial data sets as one of the key components of open data. Perhaps it's not thought about as much by the open data community, but geospatial data is one of the key data sets that should come out through the Open Data Initiative. So much of what we do, government is a partner, and government provides public goods. And so we think it's important that government is improving its delivery to its citizens and is being more transparent about how funds are being used and what they're being used for. So open data, a government's commitment to open data, helps us ascertain whether or not government is doing enough or whether it can be helped in that regard. We focus a lot on that. We fund a lot of organizations that pay close attention to this so that you can balance what is going to be released and what isn't. So we've been big supporters of the GDPR, the European initiative which comes in May this year, which is really improving citizens' rights around privacy of data, but not only that, shifting more towards a consent architecture where people actually understand more about the data that is available about themselves, and they take more control of that data, and they agree on a consent basis to allow their data to be used for something in return that should be of positive benefit to them. It's a real concern that we're paying attention to, that this digital divide only grows. And it's particularly exacerbated where government agencies are not able to fulfill their mandates. So we take it for granted, for example, that many of the data sets we have in Western Europe or in North America are there because government agencies have been able to produce them as a public good. And that provides the basis for many other developments, including private sector development. That's not the case in many countries. And yet now you have a further imbalance because you have very large private companies that are actually able to generate and collect a lot of primary data that only before governments could collect. And this exacerbates that divide because those companies, of course, reside in North America or Western Europe. And so I think of key concern is how do we balance commercial good with also providing that public benefit to those countries that don't have or are not able to maintain core geospatial data sets.